is immutable. The money is
The genesis locked to the edge of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution. This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to On-Chain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am the host of this show and this channel. This is a channel where we talk about all things on-chain, right? Having to do with Web3, but also kind of creeping out of that as well, talking about the AI sectors as crypto and AI has kind of come together and started to mesh together as well, right? But anything relating to on-chain is kind of what we try to cover as much as possible. I do want to welcome back the TikTok and Abstract and Zora audiences. I got all those set up before going live, which was great. Also the Rumble, Spotify, got that back up as well. Shout out to my YouTube audience and X on the YouTube side. If you like my content, I ask that you would subscribe to the channel and hit that like for me. And then on X, let's share this space as much as possible so we can get as many people in here as possible so we can help educate or try to learn together really is the goal there. Let me in fact check and make sure that my X stream is working correctly, and it seems like it's not. So let me make sure to share this. Give me 1 second here, guys. Post this. All right. Something's been going on with X and the StreamYard platform to where it's not posting directly in there, and I'm having to manually do that, which is kind of annoying. But all right, guys, drop your comments in the platform it's from. And then I will get to your comments accordingly. And yeah, let's start the show. So the main topic of the show is Bitcoin still looks weak, but don't get trapped here. So I say this because, you know, people are starting to get excited when Bitcoin starts to jump up, right? 68,000, 69,000, even getting to 70,000. But you really got to zoom out and look at, you know, some of these time frames, right? And see what data they're giving you. Right? It's very, very important. And I'm not talking about the people that are in this for the long game, right? If you're DCAing and you're going along with a DCA plan that we talked about on Tuesday, you know, this is not for you specifically. Of course, listen in because you can kind of see how things work short and midterm. This is more for the people that, you know, are going in and needing to come out more quickly, right? Not a DCA type of situation. I personally am DCAing. I think we're in that range, and I think we probably go lower. So there's going to be more opportunities for that as well. But yeah, I'm going to get into reasons why I believe this could be kind of like a trap. If you look, it does look like Bitcoin kind of wants to kind of pop up, and we're going to look at those resistance levels. And, you know, I think it's very important to stay disciplined with that kind of stuff, right? So we're going to dive into that. We are also going to hit on some news like not so great news. Crypto lender Blockfills actually halted withdrawals last week. We'll get into that. And then some other AI news with Tether CEO talking about how they're going to integrate AI into their business model. Then you got some stuff coming from Consensus in Hong Kong with a lot of these institutions kind of gathering together and getting excited about pushing the space forward. I think that's very, very important to kind of hit on. And we'll get into the price action of where Bitcoin's going to be heading for later today, maybe tomorrow, heading into the weekend. And then we will wrap it up with some Bitcoin ecosystem news, some trenches news as well, and then end the show that way. But we're always going to start each and every show with the market pulse. So let's get started there. You know, one of the big stories of the day is the initial jobs claims. We've been talking about that a little bit this week and last week as well, right? And if we start there, you can see that the initial jobs claims that came in today, this morning, it's been mixed data the past like week, right? Depending on which category and who's reporting it. But you can see here on the Market Watch calendar, initial jobless claims came in a little bit higher. So you see 227,000 jobless claims were submitted while the expectation was 225,000. It's not really that much more, but you know, just a tiny bit more. And then you can see the previous week, it was less than that. So I guess if you look at that, it seems like it's going down because the previous week's data was 232,000 jobless claims submitted there. So not too bad. I don't think that should be like a market crusher, right? Then you have some tariff news that came in where tariff revenue soars more than 300%. But does that even matter, right? That is the question, because we're still waiting on the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on if we're going to have to pay all this money back, which would be a catastrophe, in my opinion, because that means all the money that this administration's been boasting about earning in terms of tariff revenue would have to be paid back, right? But if it does kind of favor in the current administration's support and decision from the Supreme Court matches up with that, then this is good. That means that, the revenue is increasing, and this could be distributed out towards kind of giving back is one of the plans that they mentioned. I'm not going to hold my breath with that because I feel like it's been more of a topic of trying to win over certain groups of people, maybe for midterms or whatnot. But nevertheless, it is a little bit good of a bit of good news here to kind of start off the market pulse. Now let's get into the markets and see how they're reacting from some of these headlines here. You got Bitcoin sitting at 66,800 here, but let's start with the stock market. The S&P is down 0.72%, and the stock market kind of started a little green, but it's pulled back, right? You can see NASDAQ is pulled back 1.25%. The Dow Jones is down 0.35%. You see the VIX up 3.34% there. And then you're seeing the DXY pulling back 0.16%. The Russell down 1.05%. You got the Mag 7 pulling back 1.67%. Then the individual stocks, Nvidia pulling back 0.56%. Not too bad. We've seen it really kind of get hit a little bit harder earlier this week and last week. Google pulling back 0.3% here. Apple pulling back 2.7%. Tesla pulling back 1.1%. Netflix pulling back a whole 5% there. That's pretty significant for Netflix there. Futures down around 2%, a little bit higher than 2%. You got oil and silver there. And then you got the crypto side, which is Bitcoin pulling back 0.57%, along with Ethereum pulling back 0.49%. So about 0.5 right there, right? So not too bad. And then precious metals pulling back, with gold pulling back 0.57%, and then silver pulling back 2.69%. So overall, it seems like markets aren't really, excited of what's happening right now. Most everything is pulling back, including crypto, right? So let's get back into this main topic. I got a couple comments here. I got a GM from Dr. Min. Dr. Min, I will be joining her in a spaces later today at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, to where we're going to be talking about AI again, right? So if you missed yesterday's segment, you can always rewatch it in my YouTube library or wherever you watched on the platform. It should be there. But we are going to be joining Ordinal Hive Spaces today and talking about that as well. So you can join that on X. And then morning from Glasshopper, morning Glasshopper. Keep those comments dropping in there and I will get to those. All right. So going back to the main topic here, where Bitcoin still looks weak. Don't get trapped here. Okay. So, all right. So the main reason I'm saying this is because, and I know that Bitcoin is going back down now. You can see on the hour chart, it's starting to show that it's done with the buy pressure session. But earlier today, it was heading up, and the later part of yesterday, it was heading up, right? But I'm going to keep using this right here because it has been just such a strong chart with the moving average indicator just helping me so much in terms of what I'm seeing now. This is, this situation that I'm looking at right now with where Bitcoin is right here on this weekly chart that you're looking at. And I know there's a lot of distraction in here, but I put these kind of extra details in here on purpose. So if you go back to the bear market when it started in 2018, early 2018, late 2017, you can see that this downward trajectory to the low took 350 days, right? About 350 days. It was an 84% drawdown from this $20,000 all-time high for Bitcoin, right? And then you go to the 2022 bear market. The all-time high was 69,420. And this one took about 378 days. So not too much longer. You're looking at maybe a month longer than the bear market of 2018. And this drawdown was actually 77% drawdown from this all-time high of reaching that low of 15,800. Now, this is kind of throwing me off because if you look at the percentage drawdowns, right, at the 84% in that 2018 bear market from all-time high, and then 77% from the 2021 or 2022 bear market, it seems like it's decreasing in terms of the percentage drawdown a bit. But what would be, comparable for a drawdown for this cycle, right? We didn't have any euphoric blow off the top situation, at least for alts. Bitcoin got to 126. But let's just say you kind of follow the trend here. You go down by 7% because we went from 84% drawdown in 2018 to 77% drawdown in 2022. So if we were to do a 70% drawdown in this bear market from all-time highs, that would bring us to 37,800. And Glasshopper, I didn't forget, that was kind of your projection for the bear market low is 38,000, I think you said, right? So this would be absolutely crazy. Now, the one thing that's holding me back from saying that this is a scenario that could be very likely is this is the price point of 37,000, right? So 800. If we would have to kind of go down another 30% below the 200 moving average. And that only happened in 2022. So I'm not so sure if we're going to see like this trend continue here. But nevertheless, this is kind of like worst case scenario, right? So let's just say we don't do this, but we only do something that's like even 15, 20% of this where it draws down like this. We're still looking at, getting into the mid 50,000s to low 50,000s, right? Before coming back up and claiming those higher levels. So that is why I feel like you got to be very, very careful with these short-term pumps that gets everybody excited, right? Now let's kind of go to where we are right now. Right, so we're at 66,000 right now, and you can kind of see where we've been ranging. It has been about 3-hour candles to the downside for Bitcoin. So we're coming back down from 68. What was that? 68,500, right? And if you look here at this liquidity heat map, you'll know why Bitcoin keeps jumping up and jumping back down, right? You can see here that these pockets of liquidity, look at this one at 68,636, right? They want to grab this liquidity, and this is leverage is a business, right? Or else it wouldn't be so pushed, right? It's constantly pushed by these huge entities, centralized exchanges, and all that stuff. So you got to be careful, in knowing when it's an actual legitimate push to the upside that's going to be continuous for Bitcoin, or if it's just distraction and it's just these entities, market makers grabbing liquidity and trying to liquidate shorts and longs, because they're going to continually do that. So that's just a bunch of noise that happens whenever Bitcoin goes into a new level, and it tricks people to make them feel like, okay, we're going to exit. Now we're going back to the upside. We're done. This is the bottom. I've heard that so many times the past 2 weeks. That was the bottom, 60,000. But if you zoom out, then you'll know that anytime you get down in this area of the 200 moving average, you hang out here for a bit. And this is a weekly chart. So every candle is a week. You hang out down here for a bit. So we just got here. If you look at where we are, why would we just touch it, tag it, and just immediately leave? So that's like my data that's telling me that I feel like, any type of push up to the upside, if we're not breaking the resistance level of 71,300, it's a trap. All right, so I wanted to kind of clear that up in terms of where my position was with that. Now let's get into some news that has been happening recently. All right, let's get into this topic, which is very interesting here, but also a little bit worrisome, right? These are kind of headlines that you start to see more and more that give you conviction that we are in this bear market and deep in it. The title says crypto lender. Let me bring that. Okay. Crypto lender halted withdrawals during Bitcoin's fall last week. So we're talking about last week, but you know, when Bitcoin crashes, that's when people kind of run to the exits, right? And that's whenever these exchanges or lenders start to get a lot of pressure because everybody wants to withdraw, and you'll know the truth if they're actually solvent or not pretty quickly. Now it says institution-focused crypto lending platform Blockfills announced it halted customer deposits and withdrawals last week as Bitcoin and the broader crypto market continued to tumble. It also says the suspension, which remains in effect, was intended to protect clients to restore liquidity on the platform, Blockfills says in an X post on Wednesday. Last week's market tumble saw Bitcoin fall another 24% from 78,995 to 60,000. Blockfills said the withdrawal and deposit halt came in light of recent market and financial conditions. Management has been working hand in hand with investors and clients to bring this issue to a swift resolution and to restore liquidity to the platform. So this is not a good sign, guys, because this reminds me a lot of like the BlockFi situations and Celsius and those type of things. You start to see cracks at first, and then you start to see the overall effects of these things. Now, we saw a huge liquidation event in October 10th of 2025, and I was very, very shocked not to see headlines more like this start to appear, right? But now we're starting to see a couple of these. Some other comments in here. See, Glasshopper says, wick to 35,000. You're close. Okay. Yeah, he said a wick to 35,000 would be the low there. All right. Okay. Yeah, so these are type of headlines that you got to keep looking out for, right? Let's continue on here. It says the halt potentially impacts about 2,000 institutional clients. So not even just regular retail. We're talking about institutional clients at this point, which is going to be even worse because they have much more capital, you know, than your regular retail accounts, right? And it says 2,000 institutional clients, including asset managers and hedge funds, which contributed to more than $60 billion in trading volume on the platform in 2025. The crypto liquidity and lending platform serves only investors with crypto holdings of $10 million or more. So this is a platform that focuses on institutions. So this is no bueno. Hopefully they're able to really kind of shore this up, because if this actually ends up being a situation to where they are truly insolvent, this could be horrible. And then it goes on to say Bitcoin is down 46% from its October high. Bitcoin's price begins to fall. Yeah, we already know all that kind of stuff. So basically, like I mentioned earlier, keep looking for headlines like this, because what happens is, you know, if you see another headline, then there's most likely some sort of connection there, especially in a short period of time. And then we could see this black swan type of situation where Bitcoin will really start to get aggressive to the downside, like we saw in 2022 with FTX and Terra Luna as well. We still have a long year left, guys. I mean, we're just getting started right now. All right, let's check out this next headline here. This is an exciting one. Tether CEO Paulo Ardoino unveils QVAC, a locally powered AI assistant built to run on a sub-average laptop GPU. So, of course, Tether's going to get involved with AI, right? AI is the largest topic right now relating to crypto and pretty much the world. And Tether likes to dip their hands in every single like cookie jar, right? So this is kind of not shocking to me. I think that we'll see how extensive, you know, these AI type of products and integrations are that these brands that are large in the digital asset space become, right? Because right now what's happening is we're in a bear market, right? And crypto has this new narrative that's exciting. But crypto has had a lot of narratives that were either forced or, you know, came organically. and seem to have ruined a lot of those kind of narratives, right? It's like once, you know, the projects or the tokens jump up significantly in market cap, the sell downs eventually happen, and then the narrative dies out. The main difference with this one is that you have the rest of the world joining in on this, right? With OpenClaw, you have tons of people that have nothing to do with crypto at all, just really, really bullish on this new technology and this new approach of leveraging AI's technology and ability to make them more efficient. And it works perfectly with crypto because of the payment rails, right? When you're talking about this X402, that's how these agents are going to get paid, right? And so the bigger question, I think, is we know Base is a serious chain and project and brand when it comes to AI autonomous agents and X402 payments and all these things. But what about all the extra, you know, brands in crypto? Are they just jumping on this bandwagon? Because to be honest, I feel like some of these brands are doing that, right? And I think it's more of me being preconditioned to seeing what's happened in past narratives with the crypto space, right? You're starting to see like Lightning Network on Bitcoin, you know, build agents. And we're going to look further into that because that's one of the Bitcoin ecosystem updates. I'm going to go into a article, but if this is true, then this is something that can actually help Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's blockchain has always had issues with scalability because we don't have smart contracts on Bitcoin. But if you can form some sort of trustless AI agent type of interaction, that solves smart contract needs on Bitcoin. Now you have these AI agents that can do the transactions kind of, you know, automatically, autonomously, right? People can swap for Bitcoin runes into another fungible token, those type of things. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But Tether is definitely a big brand, so not shocked that they have been joining. All right, we got super fan joining the show, GM, and my guy Block9 says salute with the orange Bitcoin orange square. What is up, guys? All right, let's go on to the next story here. All right, Longitude. Longitude is a event that is happening at Consensus in Hong Kong. And Cointelegraph is reporting here. It says industry leaders on stage discussing why clear rules are key to building credible crypto markets. You have Craig Salm from Grayscale. You have Meller from Stable. You got Securitize, and then OneAsset_IO. The reason why I included this is because I think we're going to start seeing more and more traditional finance representation at conventions, right? Consensus has been a long-going convention held by the guys from Consensus, right? Joe Lubin, I believe, is behind that, the co-founder of Ethereum and founder of MetaMask. And but they, you know, it's been very, very Web3 and crypto native when you talk about builders. Now you're starting to see Grayscale, and I know Grayscale is kind of like, you know, have been in the Bitcoin space for quite some time with their trust and things like that. But with regulation happening, I think we're going to see more and more of these type of things, and the space is going to change. I do think we're still going to have our niche kind of cypherpunk a bit, and I think a lot of that exists in the Bitcoin ecosystem. But in terms of representation at a lot of these events and conferences, don't be shocked if you start to see more Robinhood. We've already seen Robinhood at the Bitcoin conference. We've seen them at, you know, Token 2049. And now Robinhood has launched their testnet because they're putting stocks, they're tokenizing stocks, right? So I'm just saying this is a evolution of the next movement forward. Now, I'll always kind of love that I have my connection to the Bitcoin ecosystem community and the roots there, because I think it's just such a kind of like niche cult community that continually grows. And I think that's going to be okay. right? There's going to be that collectability for like NFTs and ordinals and those type of things. But in terms of big money coming in, I think that we're at that next phase right now. All right, let's get back to the price action real quick and kind of see maybe where Bitcoin's heading for today. And then we'll take a look at some of these altcoins as well, because I think right now there's some altcoins that are riding on this AI narrative in crypto, and you got to be careful with that for sure. All right, looking here at Bitcoin on the hour chart. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but we're going to deep dive into it. All right, Bitcoin is sitting at 66,300, and the RSI, the stochastic RSI, looks like it just crossed the fast line, crossed over the oversold territory, which is that 20-point mark. We are sitting at 13.5 for the stochastics. The MACD is starting that first red candle, but there is an official cross from the fast blue line over that slow orange line, and that technically states, and you can see with the red candle here, that we are in sell pressure for Bitcoin on the hour chart, and this candle is starting to get pretty aggressive, right? We're sitting at 66,150, and it looks pretty aggressive to the downside. Now let's look at these liquidity pockets really quick to see if we can maybe see if they're trying to grab something below. And I do use the liquidation heat map mode 2 on CoinGlass, just to let you guys know. So looking at this heat map, I don't see anything super aggressive in terms of liquidity pockets. Now there is one that's starting to form up. It is a little bit more yellow than its surroundings, and that sits at 65,800. And so we're about $400 away from that. They could definitely be trying to shoot for that and grab that liquidity, but will they continue to the downside? I think that's very, very important to kind of ask yourself, right? Now, you do see this. Oh, wait, no, let me go to the hour here. You do see, that it is starting to get aggressive. So we could see that next move in the next 2 to 4 hours for Bitcoin to get to that 65,800, grab that liquidity, and then we'll kind of reset from there. Right, so that's kind of what I'm thinking with Bitcoin. I think we break down below 66,000 in the next 4 hours and head towards that upper 65,000. Easy liquidity grab there. It's not a ton, but it's enough, I think, and we're close enough for that to be grabbed. So that's what I'm thinking for the near term here, for at least the next 4 hours. And if we go over to the 4-hour chart here, you're getting some support here, some conviction for what I just mentioned for the hour chart. So the 4-hour is showing that it wants to dive a little bit deeper. We just started the sell pressure for the 4-hour chart as well. And you are seeing Bitcoin start to head down more aggressive on the 4-hour. So could be lower than 65 heading into the weekend, right? Let's see what happens here in the next 4 hours, though, because anything can change. The headline can change, those type of things. Maybe the market makers want to grab that liquidity really quick and then come back up. But as of right now, the 4 hours is showing support for that hour thesis. All right, now let's go to the daily for Bitcoin here. And this has been a really tough, and I'm going to actually go a little bit lower than this. But first, I want to talk about the daily here. So for Bitcoin, the daily has been looking like it wants to pull up, right? It wants to pull up out of sell pressure session, but it hasn't been able to, because every single day that there seems to be some price action to the upside, it just eventually gets yanked back down, okay? But let's look at the 12-hour, because I think the 12-hour chart can definitely give us more information. Okay, this is good. So the 12-hour has been in a little bit of this buy pressure, right? So for me, this looks very, very weak, very weak. So that thesis of coming out of the sell pressure on the daily chart, it's not looking strong, because you go down to the 12-hour chart and the buy pressure that it's in right now is already breaking down, right? And it looks like it wants to come back down from overbought already on the 12-hour chart, right? So for me, I'm thinking this is one of the reasons why I say be careful whenever everybody's getting excited if Bitcoin starts to head to the upside, because you need to look at different time frames and it will tell the story. It'll tell you the story, right? All right, going to the 8-hour as well, same thing. Buy pressure looks weak over here. So for me, until we come out, and it looks like it's heading for that liquidity pocket right now. It's at 65,950. So that 65,800 it could definitely go that. Now there's only 5.8, 5.9 million around there. Oh no, I was looking at a different level. 12.2 million for it to kind of liquidate in that area there. All right, now let's go really quick back to ETH and just do a quick overview on ETH, and then we will get back to the alts here. Okay, so Ethereum on the hour chart, same situation, looking aggressive to the downside. $1,900, man, it's starting to get really, really juicy for ETH here. As I just shared my chart there, it looks like we're about to break below 1,900, but it is following Bitcoin to a T right now. So aggressive to the downside on the hour chart. Look for it to break down below 1,900 very, very soon and have that continuation down. And then on the 4-hour chart, it's giving that support just like Bitcoin did, right? So I think the level that you got to look at for ETH here is, does it break below 1820? If it breaks below 1820, then we can see further down. And maybe it tries to revisit that wick at 1746, but first 1820 is that level it needs to break. Okay. All right. And then the daily is the same with ETH as well. Looks like it wants to come out, but it's all the other time frames are saying it's not ready there. All right, now let's go to some crypto bubbles here. Crypto bubbles are surprisingly looking mostly green here. Got another comment in here. Almond Joy says GM Almond Joy. All right, looking at crypto bubbles here. This is the alt market here. Surprise. You got about I don't know, you're looking at maybe a 65% in the top 100, kind of pulling up, but barely. I mean, it's going to be red here very soon because Bitcoin and ETH are looking pretty aggressive right now to the downside. But everything I'm looking at right now, 65, 70% has pulled up between 1% and 3% to the upside. You do have a little bit pulling down here. Some big losers, though. You got Mix, MYX, pulling back 30%. You got Layer 0, which is pulled back 14%. And Layer 0 is actually a token I'm very, very bullish on because they are constantly in the conversation or headlines regarding institutions. And I know, institutions are here, guys. Like they're going to be a main driver, right? They were the main driver for Bitcoin to get to 126 last year, right? But Layer 0 is kind of being selected sort of like how Chainlink has been selected, right? As the Oracle. Now, Layer 0 is being selected as, more of, I think, like a bridging style type of interoperability protocol. But it is down 14%. I think it had a pretty good week since it was in the headlines so much. Uniswap is down 16%. You do see Quant down 3% here. Aptos pulling back 3.7%. You got Bitcoin Cash pulling back 3.3% here. What else do we have? Pancake Swap pulling down 1.3. Virtuals pulling up 4.1%. They have been in kind of the hype cycle with all these AI autonomous agents. And then Hyperliquid up 3.5%. And they are another project that I am bullish on. They just got a lot going for them and have a lot of strength in their price action, or their just token in general market cap. WLFI is up 3.1%, as well as going to the top 200 here. In the top 200, we are seeing some meme coins pop up here. Tibber is up 45.3%. You got XPL, which is Plasma, up 11.3%. Sonic is up 8.4%. Barachain up 23.5%. ADA up 10.7%. And yeah, that's pretty much all the big ones that are sticking out. Immutable X up 5.2% and Jasmy up 7%. Those are decently sized projects there. And stuff that's pulled back significantly, just UDS. I think this is a meme coin as well. There was a meme coin I want to look at, and I want people to just, not financial advice, just be careful when you see something like Pippin up, and this was at like $535 million. I want to say 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. But Pippin is a AI meme coin, and I believe 1,000% it's driving on this AI narrative, right? And so just be careful whenever you see these narrative newer coins or meme coins drive up, because these whales are going to be selling. They're going to be dumping on the people that enter as it continually grinds up, right? So Pippin is something that I'm just saying, hey, look, if you're bullish on Pippin, that's your decision, but it's something that I noticed right away, and I was like, that is driving on the AI narrative there. All right, so that is Bitcoin and the alts for you guys. All right, let's take a look here at what we got next in the news. All right, so Trump backed World Liberty Fi Financial to roll out foreign exchange remittance service report. This is pretty significant. Why does this thing stick up here? It says World Liberty Fi, a crypto project backed by the members of the Trump family, said it plans to launch a foreign exchange and remittance platform aimed at lowering the cost of cross-border money transfers. That's huge. Everybody's talked about like cross-border money transfers and how XRP was going to be, a big player in that and all these things. But I guess whenever you are connected to the president, you can kind of get there a little bit quicker. And it says the platform called WorldSwap will connect users directly to debit cards and bank accounts globally and settle foreign exchange remittances at what the company describes as a fraction of the fees charged by traditional providers. Zach Folkman, co-founder of World Liberty Financial, announced the initiative during the Consensus Conference in Hong Kong. So they're over there in Hong Kong. He said that more than 7 trillion moves globally between currencies each year, and argued that traditional financial intermediaries extract significant fees from those flows, positioning WorldSwap as a lower cost alternative to incumbent providers. So, I mean, this is kind of what we have all thought the use case for crypto would be at one point, right? Making things cheaper for these kind of third-party middlemen that were getting away with charging pretty much whatever they wanted, right? Because they were the only providers. And it kind of goes to like the streaming era, right, for music. A lot of these artists and music companies were able to pretty much charge what they wanted to an extent before that. And then once that happened, a lot of these middlemen type businesses and stuff started to lose money and revenue, because now, you can buy it for so cheap on Spotify, right? Now this is on a much larger scale, I believe, but you are seeing some political pushback, though. It says the growth of the Trump family's crypto ventures has coincided with President Donald Trump's oversight of U.S. crypto policy, prompting ethics experts to raise concerns about potential conflicts of interest. The White House has denied that any such conflicts exist. Yeah, so we're going to have to see, is this something that's going to be continually in the news? Yes, absolutely. World Liberty Fi is a, big player. They have, a ton of their USD1 everywhere. It's on Solana. It's on Binance, holds 87% of the circulating supply. And so we're going to see more and more of World Liberty Fi in the news. All right. Speaking of Solana leads all payment platforms with 550 or 755% year-over-year growth rate per Artemis. So that doesn't mean that they, are doing the most volume, but they have the largest growth. You can see right here the total volume that they're doing is 6.5 billion, and they're behind BNB chain at 18.6 billion. But the growth year over year, they are the highest at 755%. BNB is right behind them, and that makes sense, because if you look at kind of like the on-chain data, right, that's what we have seen. If you look, think about the past year or of 2025, we would always see Solana being first, and from different moments throughout the year, BNB would kind of take that spot, but then Solana would get it back pretty quickly, right? So does this continue? Is Solana going to be a big player for infrastructure for payments and things like that? I don't see a reason why they wouldn't continue the growth. A lot of the growth that has to do with, just the fact that a lot of liquidity is concentrated there on Solana right now. I mean, if you talk to anybody in the space, builder, ecosystem, it doesn't matter. But everybody knows that Solana has this concentrated liquidity that keeps those volumes with Pump Fund and all these launch pads going, right? And it's so odd because you don't see it in anywhere else. Even if there is a short-term kind of hype, for example, Monad launched, right? They had a big campaign that launched late 2025, I believe it was. And like the volume there literally lasts for like 2 weeks, and everybody went back to Solana. So it's interesting to I would wonder, like, how is that sustainable? How is that being kept there on Solana? There has to be some sort of group of just people that have a lot of liquidity that continually makes more, maybe. I don't know. That's just kind of a speculative thesis that I have with it. But anyways, nevertheless, Solana is leading with their growth in terms of payment platforms, right? And we'll see if they get adopted more by some of these bigger names, right? Like we're seeing Stripe work with Base because of the X402 stuff. But will these payment processors start to integrate in a Web3 way with Solana? They have the name and the hype right now, but we'll see if they'll be able to maintain it, because Solana reminds me a lot of Ethereum from 2020 and 2021. I'm sure it reminds you guys of that as well, as it was constantly being talked about as the main chain and all the activity was happening there on Ethereum. And then what happened the next cycle, Ethereum kind of turned into this ghost chain almost. Well, there's a lot of DeFi that's kind of being handled there by some of these institutions, and people are staking on validators, but definitely wasn't the quick in money and quick out money type of situation that we saw in 2020 and 2021. Solana took that role for sure in 2024 and 2025. So can they maintain being kind of like the center of attention, or would they follow the same trajectory that Ethereum took after it had been in the limelight for the 2021-2020 bull run? All right. This next headline here is interesting, because this tells me that institutions are really, afraid of MEV and just getting, I guess, beat at the financial technology game, which I think is a big reason why they took so long to come into the space. Obviously, they were waiting for an administration that was going to be pro-crypto and regulations to come in. But I do think a lot of it also had to do with them not feeling like they were on the same level as the people that are crypto native, right? But this title here says flash freezing Flash Boys, per transaction encryption to fight malicious MEV. It says flash freezing Flash Boys is a novel proposal for per transaction encryption to prevent front running. And we've known MEV has been a huge part of crypto trading, on chain, like using your MetaMask and stuff like that. People remember the guy, Jared from Subway, that was constantly front running everybody. But this article goes on to say malicious MEV attacks pose a significant threat to traders on Ethereum. Our latest research shows that almost 2,000 sandwich attacks, Jared from Subway, that's why they called him that, happen daily, and more than 2 million is extracted from the network each month. Even traders who execute large wrapped ETH, wrapped Bitcoin, or stable swaps remain at risk and can lose a substantial portion of their trades. MEV thrives because of the transparent nature of blockchains, where transaction data is visible before transactions are executed and finalized. One path forward mitigating MEV is mempool encryption, particularly through the use of threshold encryption. In our earlier articles, we examined two different models for threshold encryption mempools. Shutter, one of the first projects to apply threshold encryption to protect the mempool, introduced a per epoch setup. Batched threshold encryption, BTE, a newer model, decrypts multiple transactions with a single key to reduce communication costs and raise throughput. So this is exactly what what we've been dealing with in Ethereum. If you traded on ETH layer 1 ever, you know what I'm talking about. I think I saw it at its peak maybe in the spring of 2023, whenever Pepe kind of rolled out and everybody was trying to trade into these new meme coins, and you saw these sandwich attacks like crazy. But TradFi is not going to put up with that, right? TradFi is not going to put up with that, because TradFi has to win on everything in their mind, right? Or at least feel like there's some sort of fair level type of situation. So that seems to be why I would imagine that this is getting pushed by the institutional level, right? In group there. So we're going to see, is this going to help? It goes a little bit further in, and you guys can check out this article on Cointelegraph, but it kind of shows a map here with the F3B protocol by steps and how it works. Right. And I don't want to get too technical with this map and all that stuff, but you can see kind of the sender here, consensus group in the middle, and the secret management committee kind of, finalizing the transactions, it seems like. Right. So definitely, I think it's a good thing, though, overall, to make it a little bit of an even playing field. But I know there's going to be people that say that's not what blockchain was created for. Right, blockchain was created for, everybody to have the best opportunity with what their knowledge is and their skills. So if they're able to get ahead, that's because they have learned how to do that and all these things. But one thing I will say for sure that turns away new people to the space is feeling like they're getting, just it's not fair at all to them, right? And you're just going to only have a small group of people that eventually that are experts at this, or are okay with losing that much money because they can get ahead of the other people. I'm not sure, but we'll see if this is going to be a plus or a negative for the space. All right. Next story here. Binance has been getting a lot of pressure from a lot of people on X, right? And one of the initiatives they had to start the year was to utilize their SAFU funds, is what they call them, to buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, right? So this title right here from Cointelegraph says, Binance SAFU fund buys 4,545 Bitcoin worth 304.5 million, bringing total holdings to 15,000 Bitcoin valued at 1 billion. So they did it. They finished their purchase of getting to $1 billion of Bitcoin, right? I do feel like this was something they kind of did for a PR situation, because they were getting so much heat from their just from crypto Twitter and everybody, and they're continually getting heat. But we'll see if that calms down. It's calmed down a little bit overall, but I'm still seeing a good amount of kind of the post on crypto Twitter about CZ and Binance. But here's the thing, though, like they want Binance. It seems like they want Binance to collapse, and there's all these like high volumes of withdrawals coming out of Binance last week, right? You can see it as the data is pretty transparent there. But if they want Binance to be a black swan event, man, that's going to be a huge black swan event, like huge. But it could push the space to a low point to where things could kind of reset, right? Because you're talking about, like I mentioned, 87% of the USD1 WLFI's stablecoin is on Binance. They're the largest centralized exchange in the industry right now, right? And so is this going to be something that brings Bitcoin below that $37,000 mark that I mentioned earlier on the chart, which would be kind of like that 70% from the all-time high of 2025, which is 126,000, going down to 37,000. And also, would it go past that, right? Because I remember seeing it at 15,800 in 2022, and I was very, very shocked to see it get there. I thought low 20,000s was, but that was the previous cycle's all-time high, right? But we shall see. We shall see what kind of an effect this has on it. All right, let's take a look here. This is some data for Bitcoin futures that kind of, I guess, gives support to the bears wanting to take Bitcoin to 60,000 and below, right? It says Bitcoin futures data shows bears gearing up for an assault on 60K. Bitcoin price fell to 65.8 on Wednesday, slipping back below intraday trend lines and raising concerns. Last week's drop to 60,000 may have not been the final bottom. Now, analysts say the possibility of another drop to a yearly low 59,800 is increasing due to a growing liquidity gap between 66,000 and 60,000. Well, we've been kind of talking about that, right? I've been talking about that for a long time. You look at where Bitcoin is on the weekly chart, and you see for us to get back to the 200 moving average, that would take us to 58,600, right? So, and let's do the weekly kind of, it's going to make me log in here. Yeah. So, I mean, definitely it's on the table. Plus that local support level too, right? That we talked about, right? If you go to the daily and look at the local support level. So on the daily, the local support level is going to be at 62,900. So we're at 66,000, about to break below it, by the way. We're about to break below 66,000 right now, right? So yeah, we're heading there, guys. We are heading there. Let me continue on with this article here. See what else they have in terms of why they think that. Okay, so key takeaways: Bitcoin has formed a series of lower highs and after repeated rejections of 70 to 72. So we've been looking at that 71.3 area. What is up, Rick G in the house? What have you been up to, Rick G? Are you looking at Bitcoin stuff? Obviously, everything has been so quiet. I'm curious of what you have been looking at. I mean, the space in general has been extremely quiet. But going back to the resistance levels of that 71.3, anytime we tried to attempt to break through that, it got rejected really quick, right? So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right, for it to continually go down below. And it says the heat map data shows 60,000 is a liquidity magnet. And they have this chart here, and you can see there at 60,000, there is a strong concentration of liquidity there. But one thing I did notice before was, or as I've been looking at charts and going through them is, it's not as easy and straightforward. The market makers aren't going to make it as easy for you guys, right? For the traders, short-term traders. They're definitely going to, fake out sometimes, and especially the closer liquidity. So that 60,000 liquidity right now, we're at like what, 66, 65.5. Wow, it just dropped another 500,000. Or sorry, it dropped another $500. So it was at 66,000 a second ago. Now it's at 65.5. So, if you have like a $5,000 gap, it could make a strong move that far. Now, what I was talking about a second ago was that a lot of times what they like to do is if there's like a liquidity pocket in reach, maybe it's $1,500 out. Everybody thinks that they're going to grab that because it's so close. And a lot of times you'll see market makers kind of act like they're doing that in reverse. And that's kind of where I feel like we are right now. And they're reversing to potentially that 200 moving average, which would be 60,000. And then I think at that point, we got to really look and see if they are trying to go below that. All right, let me remove that real quick here. All right. let's get into this Bitcoin ecosystem update, and it is about Lightning Labs. So this is the story I was telling you guys about that has to do with the AI agents and how, a lot of ecosystems and environments and stuff have been just really getting on this AI bandwagon. But I don't think that's happening here or the Bitcoin ecosystem. I do think that it happened in past narratives for sure, especially with like stuff like the inscription metas and stuff like that. But this article says Lightning Labs releases AI agent tools for native Bitcoin Lightning payments. And then you can get into it here. It says Lightning Labs has created a new open source toolkit designed to give AI agents access to Bitcoin's Lightning network. So Bitcoin Lightning, for those that don't know what Bitcoin Lightning is, it's actually, from a technical perspective, it's the only technical Bitcoin layer 2. Now there's a lot of Bitcoin layer 2s that like scale Bitcoin in terms of you can bridge assets there and that type of thing. But with Lightning, from a technical standpoint, to where the bridging is trust minimized in a way to where you can have the same asset kind of flow on and off, right? But it looks like it says they released a open source toolkit designed to give AI agents native access, aiming to close what it describes as a key gap in the emerging AI economy, the ability for autonomous systems to transact. That is the biggest thing. And I think if this can work, this could be the biggest solution to pain points using the Bitcoin network. Because the biggest problem with Bitcoin's network is not having smart contracts that are on chain. And people might say, well, are these agents going to be on chain? I don't know how they're going to build this out, especially with something that's actually, a layer 2 with Bitcoin. This could work. But the problem is that whenever you come to swap and have living liquidity on Bitcoin layer 1, it doesn't exist. So you have to have the demand for the asset, right? And that demand can create buys, which puts Bitcoin on the exchange and builds up the Bitcoin economy like we saw in 2023. But with this, if this can work in a sense to where these agents are handling autonomous swaps to where people don't have to do any manual type of search for a platform that can handle it, and they're handling it, it makes their lives a lot easier. Then it'll make the process of swapping out Bitcoin assets much more enjoyable and seamless, right? So we'll see if this ends up being anything. Lightning Network, I think, is a good place to kind of start. But also, could this work for actual Bitcoin layer 1? Could they create some sort of situation where these agents are inscribed on chain or something like that? I don't know. The one thing that still worries me is the 10-minute block times that Bitcoin takes per block. And so I don't know but you could just tell your agent, hey, I want to swap for this and that, and then you don't have to worry about it. He'll handle it for you. So we're about to find out how powerful these agents get and are going to be integrating with the crypto space and Web3. And for those that don't know, but every Wednesday and yesterday we had our first segment that focuses on Web3 and crypto. We had the team from Big Noodle, which is focused on AI and Bitcoin. In fact, they're going to be on every Wednesday. We're going to cover a new topic relating to AI and Web3 as well. And also there's going to be a space later on X today where they're going to host that. And if you're interested in learning, just make sure you go to the Ordinal Hive space. And let me give you guys the actual handle here. It's at Ordinal Hive, ORDINALHIVE. All right, I saw myself pop in. Myself says, everybody is a trader. I'm a contrarian investor. I'll stick to buying the dip and holding until alts rally. I think that's the best option. Honestly, that's what me and my wife are doing, right? We are DCAing at this point. We, if you watch the episode on Tuesday or the live stream on Tuesday, that's what that was about. It was about, are we in the levels of Bitcoin to start accumulating? And some people, like I think myself, would probably say is like, all levels are good to accumulate Bitcoin, right? But that's because his thesis is it doesn't matter. Bitcoin is always going to go up. And if you zoom out, that has happened since its existence in 2009, right? So right now we are definitely, personally, in my opinion, not financial advice, in a DCA environment for sure. Felt like we got that when we were halfway between the 100 and the 200 moving average. That's when we started to DCA. Today's show is more about these short-term traders like myself was talking about, right? People that don't want to stay in the asset for too long, that type of thing. All right, so we hit on Lightning as well as they're integrating the AI agents, and we'll see if that helps Bitcoin's ecosystem. I think it could. Like I've had that idea for a long time, and I feel like we're finally coming to that point to where these autonomous agents can now move things, right, and actually do things without having to walk it through every situation. All right, let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin ecosystem market update. So you can see here, ordinals are on the 7-day, not looking so great, I would say. I was actually a little bit worried yesterday because I couldn't see runes on Magic Eden, and there was rumors, of course, on crypto Twitter that they removed runes or dog because Leonidas has been like so aggressive supposedly to CZ, and it was removed, but it's back on there. But looking at the ordinals here on the weekly, you can see Node Monks sitting at $1,400, right? And that is crazy because these used to be $50,000 per ordinal. I'm still bullish on ordinals. I'm still bullish on the early inscriptions, and Node Monks is my favorite. That kind of fits in all that. I know it has a little bit of history initially that wasn't the best, but I really like that collection. And then you see MotoCat Racing Club. These are from the guys from OpNet that were building a scaling solution on Bitcoin Layer 1, and I believe they are also building on BSV. But their project has been going pretty crazy. It's up 44% on the week, sitting at $473. Then you got Ordinal Maxi Biz. I'm curious myself, are you picking up any ordinals right now? Because they're getting pretty cheap. You're seeing OMB here at an $800 floor, which these, I can't remember how high these got. I think, they have 3 different levels. The red eye is the most rare. I think have gotten pretty crazy, like 30,000. I gotta take a look again, but they're sitting at $800 right now, and the Bitcoin puppets are at $631. I see that the collectability of this sector, it's there. It's just more niche, but that's okay. So was Magic Cards. Magic Cards was very niche, and what happened with Magic Cards? Magic Cards blew up and got crazy. All right. And then going down here, Taproot Wizards. This is Udi and that whole Taproot Wizards team sitting at $3,602 here, or $20. This was at 1.17 grand. Bitmaps sitting right under $5. A new collection Fire sitting at 2. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty quiet. You are seeing Bitcoin Frogs at $200. So this is pretty low for Bitcoin Frogs as well. Let's take a look at the fungible tokens here. Doggo to the Moon is at $92.8 million market cap. If that starts to get close to like the $50 million mark, for me, that's a buy. And I don't, right now I'm not in the mindset of like meme coins and these kind of risk on assets, but Doggo to the Moon to me is one that I would roll the dice on, just because, the person that leads that community has 250,000 followers, that does a show like a space every other day. He's fully committed. He's been committed for like 2 years. Magic Internet Money is sitting at 7 million, or right under 7 million. A $1 billion cat sitting at 2 million. You got Pups right under 2 million. Gizmo sitting at 586,000. So those are the popular ones in that. Again, those are meme coins, and this is a risk-on environment or ecosystem I'm talking about. So for the people on TikTok and these other platforms, just know that this is. But it is in an environment that I've been associated with since 2023, right? So that's why I feel like I can speak to this area. There is another fungible token standard on Bitcoin called BRC20s, and I'm going to go into those. So the new hot BRC20 is called Nutkin. It's sitting at 4 million. GameFi sitting at 156,000. You do have Sats, which was very, very hot in 2023 and a little bit of 2024. All-time high was $1.3 billion market cap. It's still listed on Binance. It's sitting at 20 million right now, so very, very cheap. We are, in fact, in the depths of the bear market. And then you're seeing, where's Ordi? Ordi's got to be here. Ordi is sitting at 55 million. So Ordi is sitting there right at 55 million. And then Rats, which is an Eastern, like China, Asia community token in BRC20, sitting at 35 million. So that's going to wrap up that in terms of the Bitcoin ecosystem. Let's check the Solana and base trenches really quick before we end the show here. All right, Solana. Let's check out any new stuff that I see here. HTC coin, which launched, it looks like 3 hours ago, is sitting at 7.2 million. These are even more risk on, in my opinion, because Solana just like, if you last longer than 2 weeks in Solana, that means your market cap is got to be at least 10 to $20 million market cap, but it's very, very hard to get there. We are in the bear market, and this is the most like paper hands area. What else is in here that I see that's kind of new? Meme Liquid is sitting at 1.1 million. Yeah, nothing really exciting in this area. Let's go to base real quick, because that did have some of the AI autonomous tokens. Let's see what's happening there. Base, by the way, the volume has been increasing the past 2-3 weeks, which is pretty obvious the reason why, right? It's because of these bots, the Molt bot, all that stuff. All right. You see, nothing new really. I guess that's Claude Quant. Launched 21 hours ago, sitting at 208,000. Very risky. Nothing really new, honestly. Yeah, so one of the things that calmed this ecosystem down was that, and anytime that somebody launched a new OpenClaw bot or something like that, someone would use X and use Clanker to launch a token. It wasn't even the developer that was launching it. It was just some random guy out there, DGen, that was launching it and then trying to put messages on there like Clanker send fees to the developer and then tag his X account. And it just, after a while, people don't trust that anymore, right? And then you see the market caps kind of, come back down and that type of thing. But wow, this Ribita by Virtual is sitting at $110 million market cap. So this was probably launched a long time ago, though. But that is AI related. It's not one of these agents, though. So that's what we got going on there. Myself says I'm collecting runestones for the next airdrop. Dude, runestones to me is one of those collections that no one's paying attention to right now because of the market conditions. But I think runestones could be a long hold. But yes, for the audience that's wondering what are runestones are an ordinal collection that was launched by Leonidas, which is everybody considers the leader of the dog army, which is the dog Bitcoin rune token. And the way he did it was, if anybody inscribed or anything between 2023 and a certain date, depending on your inscription count, you got a certain number of runestones. And if you held those runestones until runes launched, you got an airdrop of dog token depending on how many runestones you got. So the promise is that there would be 3 airdrops total. So the first airdrop was dog go to the moon, and then now everybody that holds runestones is expecting 2 more airdrops. So that's what myself is talking about here. But I think these are going to actually have collectability down the line, because I think that dog go to the moon gets to $1 billion market cap. I think it grows past this cycle just because, like I said, I mean, the community is just so dedicated, right? And so he follows up and says, I'm still collecting uncommon sats and low inscription collections. Yeah, I have uncommon sats and a couple low inscription collections. I kind of regret a little bit selling some of them, but I got some good money for some of them, like the node monks. But now that things are getting cheap again, I 1000% am going to dive back into Magic Eden and be able to kind of select, because I feel like there's no like race, right? And so, uncommon sats are basically the first sat of every block, and you can collect those individually. So it's really, really cool situation. I'm going to do a recording again on, because we used to have recordings on the Bitcoin ecosystem assets, but I think getting into the collectability side is going to be important, and it's fun. You know, that at the end of the day, that's, if you're going to be in, you know, the asset space, some people just do it strictly for money. Obviously, you know, the overall goal is to be able to have, you know, financial freedom and those type of things. But if you can have fun as well, like, you know, collecting rare assets, I'm all for that. You know, like I mentioned on the show before, my family's in collectibles. That's our background. Sports cards, you know, signed jerseys, those type of things. And so ordinals really connect with me pretty closely because of that. All right, I think that is it for the show. Slow day today, but it's okay. Everybody seems to be kind of in the dumps. You know, when I'm seeing on crypto Twitter, I'm seeing on, like, you know, talking to, I mean, look at I will show this. Look at the fear and greed meter. This is pretty crazy. This was by Quentin Francois. This is how you say his name, but go back to this. But, you know, we got down to 5. And that's the lowest. I mean, it shows the 2012 crash. A lot of people don't remember that. I don't. I got into Bitcoin 2013. Mt. Gox, we've heard about that. That was a 9. 17 and 18 crash. The ICO crash, 11. COVID crash, that was very brief, 9. FTX crash, you know, that was pretty extreme too. A lot of crazy stuff happened during that time. Luna, Celsius, all that stuff, the war with Russia and Ukraine, and it only got to a 12. We're sitting at a 5. So that should tell you kind of where public sentiment is, right? But the people that are still here, the people that are learning every single day, whether you're on TikTok or you're on X or you're on YouTube, it's because you guys are crazy, number one. And number two, you have conviction, and you believe in this space that much that you're able to kind of get through a 5, you know, extreme fear score of where we are currently. Superfan says, I'm into the collectible aspect as well. Yeah. And I personally, and this is not a, you know, shot at any other ecosystems or chains, but me, that someone that has a family in that background, I don't think it's that close when it comes to collectability. Now, do I think, like, you know, ETH NFTs and stuff like that are collectible? Absolutely, especially like the early on ones. And depending on, there he is, Shamana says, we here, dude, we're crazy, right? Shamana, welcome back to the show, man. It's been a minute. I see you constantly in those Bitcoin spaces. I got to join one of those. You know, I know you used to kind of help host some of those as well. Xtina, welcome to the end of the show, but thanks for commenting in here as well. And the 3 listeners on TikTok, appreciate you guys, as well as Abstract. I see some listeners in there, and Zora. But again, like I mentioned earlier to start the show, I will be co-hosting a space that is going to have Big Noodle, which, you know, experts in AI and Web3, and the Ordinal Hive guys, Fonzie, the founder of Ordinal Hive, and they are builders in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and they're definitely, like, have an open mind for other parts of the space. So it's a very free-flowing conversation. I think it will be an interesting space. So make sure you guys join that if you can. But outside of that, I appreciate you guys for, you know, supporting the show, jumping into the comments, watching, all that great stuff, especially during this slow period that we're going through. But I'm going to keep bringing the news. I'm going to keep, you know, trying to build community. That is my goal. And I'm going to start a kind of intro to Web3 for anybody. If you guys know anybody that just needs intro type of help, or, you know, I'm talking about like what Bitcoin means, what it is, you know, breaking down those aspects, just send them to the channel, because you know, it's going to be free. I just want a place for people that are trying to learn, to get started and not feel nervous or have anxiety, because I can tell you right now, new people want to, they're interested, they're intrigued, but they're scared as hell. They are scared as hell, I'll tell you that. But it's our job to make them not scared. It's our job to let them know, hey, look, this space isn't as scary as you think, as long as you're educated. 9 says, keep rocking, brother. Definitely will do. Will do. So I appreciate all you guys. Without y'all, I could not do the show. And then without my partners, I also couldn't do it. If you're interested in that space down there, go to pyro.buzz. You can bid on that. And then also, if you have a chance, head over to merlinchain.io and you can check out their Bitcoin staking, which is really, really good, in my opinion. This is my opinion, not financial advice. But if you go to merlinchain.io, you can go to staking, and then you can click on Bitcoin. They are offering between 8 and 21% APR. It is a 3-month lockup period. They shoot for that percentage range, right? It's not guaranteed, but they shoot for that for sure. And then also, they have 2 options to stake the Merlin Chain token. The flexible, which is a day-to-day option, you earn 15% APR if you stake their Merlin Chain token. You can withdraw whenever you want, but there's a 7-day cooldown period on the day-to-day. Just know that. You can claim your rewards every single day. Compound interest that if you want, whatever you want to do. And then a bonded option, which is a 6-month lockup period. You earn 45% APR on that one. You can claim your rewards every single day, but of course, locked up for 6 months. And the brand website is down right now for maintenance. So if anybody was trying to head over there to read blogs, I always put blogs on there. And then you can get like a really big discount on your NordVPN if you purchase it through the link on that website, which is OnChain. Revolution.io, again, it is down, but it should be back up tomorrow after maintenance is done. And that is pretty much it, guys. Hopefully I see a lot of you guys in the space, but if not, until tomorrow, peace.